Right, shut up, Kral. I'm trying to do the intro.
Yeah, Darren and I will sing it. Ready? On three. Darren, 1, 2, 3.
That's
That's going to be an absolute train wreck.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Laying Down the Lore 40K, a lore podcast in which we aim to separate our Drukhari from our Dark Angels, our Tyranids from our Tau, and our Craft Worlds from our Chaos Marines, and generally ask, what's up with this Warhammer 40K stuff? My name is Ben Crow Barber, and I know pretty much fuck all about 40K. With me is my co-host, Christopher Krallen Allen.
Witty hello. Hi.
Who knows absolutely fuck all about 40K.
Witty response.
And my dear brother Darren.
Pardon me?
Who knows so much about 40K, it's a wonder he has time to do anything else. Over the years, this dichotomy between our levels of understanding became clear, and this series is an attempt to address that ignorance.
Regular hooray.
Hooray. Regular hooray. And a regulated hooray to you too. Oh man, this is a really stalling start this morning, isn't it?
It is.
Ben's bringing great energy, everyone, with his anvil-shaped hair.
Ben, your hair has a hypotenuse. What's going on?
It's an isosceles today.
You're an isosceles.
I mean, I can laugh. I barely have hairs, so I'm just jealous.
We all do, Kral. Yeah.
I'm hairy where I shouldn't be. That's the thing.
I'm hairy where I shouldn't be. On my elbows.
On other people. Amazing.
Oh, it's going to be a mess today.
Yeah, it is. Yep. you just pull out a napkin and wipe your mouth, Chris. What are you, 70?
A hanky, actually.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, that stroop waffle went all over my gob.
He also had a Belgian pastry.
In his coat pocket.
Yeah, just from nowhere.
Never leave home without my handkerchief, stroop waffle, and cock ring.
Wow.
We're not going to tell you how they're connected. Yeah.
No, exactly, yeah.
Stroop waffle hanging off his knob like a fucking Tamagotchi.
You're playing Tamagotchis wrong, mate.
You may think that. I've had mine alive for 23 years.
And it's like, kill me now.
Yeah.
Is it like swimming in its own feces? It's mainly feces.
No, it's swimming in my feces. What?
Right. Big thanks to everyone that supports the show. You guys are great. If you'd like to support the show, there are a number of ways you can do that. You can head over to Patreon, or you can sign up for our Discord for just £3 a month, or you can pay an extra £2 a month and get a cock ring from Chris. Or
That's not true. That's not true.
Terms and conditions apply.
Yeah. No, the stock is limited, though.
Yeah. Your investment may go up and down. Yeah.
Or you can pay that £2 to get access to our bonus show, 40KO'd. We also have merchandise, Sans cock rings, and links to our...
Sans cock rings? That sounds expensive. Are they continental?
French cock rings. Yeah. And links to our affiliates. If you're into the hobby, just hit the Quartermaster link in the description. This episode may also include some ads, which help
for
us create
rings.
Content for free for cock rings. So the easiest way is just to let the easiest way to support us, not just the easiest way, but the easiest way to support us is to let them play fully. And of course, buy yourself a Kral branded cock ring.
Or just Kral ring for short.
Kral's ring. You can also help us by dropping us a message on whichever platform you listen to this shit on.
Right, before we move on, I just want to say, and I'd like this left in, I'm going to be interested to see how much of this makes the edit. Depending on how long or short of this is, listeners, you've missed a whale of a time.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Oof, I'm exhausted.
Right, Kral.
It's been
you
a
know
real,
what time
as the Japanese say, Tamagotchi.
Kraligotchi.
Quick, feed him.
Clean me.
Take him for a walk. What else did you do with the Tamagotchi? Pet it?
Pet it, it needs attention, it needs love. Those kinds
All
of
of the things that Kral needs, yeah. Kraligotchi, come into a merchandise store near you.
Don't need to tell you why I had that mental breakdown recently, all right? You didn't clean, care, entertain, feed me.
Was it the process of the Kraligotchi manufacturers having to take a digital imprint of your mind?
Indeed.
No,
yeah.
it's because he discovered he was attached to someone's cock.
Via the Kral ring.
No, his own. It was terrifying.
Right, Kral, you know what time it is.
Citizen of the Imperium, it's time for frontal lobotomy or bottle in front of me.
No, I'm sorry. No, we can't associate cock rings with one of the sweetest European girls in existence. No,
Well, we didn't have to until you said it, Darren.
Yeah, I take it back. Hooray! We'll cut that in later on.
yeah.
Hey, oh, hey.
Whey!
Whoa.
Kral, what did we... Just in case you weren't paying attention. Kral! This is episode 39. Last episode, we did the Badab War Part 6.
The finale, the aftermath.
The finale. Question 1.
Mum.
What was the court's decision on the Astral Clause?
It was a unanimous decision that they were traitors to the Imperium and the Emperor himself.
And what did they do to them?
What did they do to him? I know for the secessionist chapters, they sentenced them to 100-year penitent crusades, but did they do that for the Astral Clause as well? Oh, fucking yeah, murked him. Yeah, shanked him. Took him outside of the courts and unceremoniously brap, brap.
Love the idea of a Space Marine shivving another Space Marine. Right.
Yeah, with a spoon.
Right. Question 2. You
Execute him. Yeah.
Yeah, grand. Yeah, well done. Question 2. What did Huron do after being melted?
He survived, and he got dragged off by his loyal followers into the Maelstrom Zone and welcomed by the Red Corsairs, a bunch of exiles and rebels and ne'er-dwellers to the Imperium, to become someone Blackhand. Huron Blackhand?
He wasn't welcomed by the Red Corsairs. The Crosshairs.
He was unwelcomed.
He wasn't welcomed by the Red Cross, who had taken a wild turn in their business model.
He was the only person to be rejected by the Salvation Army in the history of the Salvation Army. Like, nah, mate.
Yeah. So, Kral, you're right. He survived. He escaped to the Maelstrom, but then they became the Red Corsairs. They set up a new base.
Oh, they became. Oh, I thought the Red Corsairs existed already, or did he found it? Did he basically?
No, they founded it. Yeah.
Oh, right, and he became Huron Blackhand.
That's right.
Yeah,
Blackheart. Yeah,
Blackheart.
It's Blackheart, motherfucker.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. Oh, I'm kind of nearly there.
The Corsairs were founded by the surviving, like the 200 members of the chapter that survived.
And didn't they found an asteroid or something that there was a base already on? They had a load of pirates and they killed all of them, didn't they? And then they took it over.
Well, they killed everyone who wouldn't bend the knee. Yeah.
Right, okay. And all of the people that were left had bendy knees. They all had rickets.
It was just people who were lame. In the traditional sense of the word.
Indeed. Okay, Kral, I'm going to give you that because pretty much.
I feel like it's so close. I'm getting the gist, aren't I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Kral, question 3. What did the Inquisitor Legate do as their final act before leaving to return to Terra?
Oh God.
Moonwalked off a Badab.
Roly polied.
Roly polied. I got nothing for moonwalked. God damn it.
I can't remember now. No, that one slips my mind.
They stripped.
Hang on, it's the wait. It's the Edict of Obliteration. What does that give you?
Ah, yes,
That
the
little
Edict of
hint?
Obliteration. Yes, that.
Yes, they obliterated them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
They
nothing.
nuked an entire.
Kill it, Ben.
No, okay. Yeah, he stripped the whole affair from the records. So basically, it never happened from Imperial records.
Yes. Yeah. The
Hang
old
on a
denial
second.
maneuver.
Does that mean that this is the Storm of Chaos of 40k?
Correct.
Yeah, but within the actual, so we know it happened, but they don't.
They know it happened.
Gotcha.
But it didn't happen.
All right, well done, Krell.
Cool.
You are on 67.74%.
Woo! I think. Yay!
No doubt.
Maybe.
No doubt. Our dear friend Randall will be in touch soon to let you know how you're doing.
Gross.
Which is not well.
I look forward to his judgment.
Right, Dar.
Oh, is it me? All right. Hello,
Yeah.
everyone. So last episode we covered the aftermath of the Badab War. We saw how the Space Marine chapters kind of operated as not only a cohesive kind of campaign force, but also individual chapters and individual companies. The types and methods of warfare that they looked at. This segues, I'm too tired to scream segue, which is my
Segue!
usual
I'll do
style.
it for
Thank
you.
you, Ben. What we're going to spend the next few months and decades are the Adeptus Astartes. So we're going to do a deep dive into the Spaz Marines, the Jimmy Space Marines, as they're referred to sometimes. But I thought what might be helpful is to start off with a bit of a recap about what we've covered already in episodes
I've just given you a
13
recap.
and touch on 14 different episodes. Chris, get your sand out of your anus.
Okay.
Somebody feed Corral quick.
Yes. Someone push his attention button. No, not that one. The other one.
Oh, hello. Bonjour.
So Space Marines are genetic superhuman warriors, or transhuman warriors, in the kind of cyberpunky style of phraseology. They are the shock troopers of the Imperium, and they are the elite fighting force of the Imperium. So if a planet is in rebellion, there has been at least a handful of times where a single squad of Space Marines has brought the planet back under Imperial rule. They're armed and equipped for planetary assault. They're definitely an attacking force, an offensive force, not a defensive force. That would simply be a waste of their training and their equipment. But they are, I think I recall it being said that if the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard, is a sledgehammer, the Space Marines are a scalpel. So they can come in and cut out very quickly the diseased part of a society. Or, as our old friend Strebor Lazarak prefers, firebomb them from orbit. Mr. Ben.
Would you have described Space Marines in
I'm
the
not
same
even
way?
going to listen to the rest of your question. I'm just going to say yes. Now finish your question.
Would you have described them in the same way in the Heresy during the 30K? Would you say that they were still a scalpel force then?
It's a great question, and sadly, I got it wrong. The answer is no.
Right.
It was 50-50, listeners. During the Great Crusade, they were a reconquering force. So their primary role was planetary assault after negotiations had failed. And yes, under the guidance of the Primarchs, the Emperor, and or any kind of general or lieutenant commander that was leading a compliance force, humans would be offered a chance to surrender or a chance to join the Imperium willingly. It was only if that was rebuffed would then they go in and remove the leadership of the planet and then replace it with citizens from their own worlds, but who were then kind of guided by the Imperium's infrastructure. So the iterators and such who would spread the good word of the Imperium of Man. There are 1,000 such chapters in the Imperium as now, as our kind of current time. This was not always the case. There originally were 20 legions, 2 of which were destroyed prior to the Great Crusade, largely. Some were one was destroyed, it seems, completely by the Space Wolves, one of the original Space Marine legions, and the other appears to have been absorbed into the Ultramarines, which would explain why there are twice as many Ultramarines as any other single legion, which echoes really the kind of parallel with the Astro Claws and the Tiger Claws, but the Ultramarines did it the right way. They got permission.
Right, okay. Can I just ask, is the 1,000 chapters that exist in 40K, are there a proportionate number of them successor chapters of the Ultramarines, given that their legion was twice the size of the other legions?
There are more successor chapters of the Ultramarines than any of the other first founding chapters.
Gotcha.
On a one-to-one basis. If you added up all the successor chapters of all the other first founding legions, it may get to the same, but there are too many unknown foundings in Imperium history to say that with any certainty. And a lot of those who claim to have an unknown founding simply lost their records and thus any kind of documented connection.
Prove it.
Krell's shrugging on a podcast doesn't work, pal.
You can hear my
You have to say audible shrug. Yeah.
Audible shrug, yeah.
Shrugs in podcast.
Sorry, could you just turn that shrug down, please? That's too loud.
Whispers in shrug, yeah. So, as I alluded to there, originally 20 legions of Space Marines were founded to enact the Great Crusade, which was the reconquest of the galaxy by the Imperium of Man. Each legion was then made up of many chapters, which was just simply an organizational unit. And after the heresy, a lot of these chapters were slightly reorganized and then sloughed off or cut out to make its own kind of discrete fighting force. There are 2 real types of Space Marine chapter in existence, and those were the ones who are tied to a specific system and then defend the sector that system is in. So they have a home world and thus have a fortress monastery, which is, it's what it sounds like. It's an enormous fortress that is also a monastery.
Shut up.
In what way is it a monastery?
Because it monasters.
Monasteries are buildings of religious significance, is that right?
Exactly right. And the Space Marines are held up as the angels of death, the angels of the Emperor. So they are held as living religious icons by the vast majority of the Imperium of Man. Mr.
Gotcha.
Chris.
Do the Space Marines see themselves as evangelical and holier than thou?
Great question. The broad answer to that is no, but there are some chapters that do. Almost all of the Space Marine chapters do not view the Emperor as a god. They view him as their genetic sire, ultimately.
Right.
And so they have a genetic link to the Emperor, and they worship him as the founder of the Imperium, but also as the kind of greatest of humans. So they have
but not godly like. They have a different perspective. Anyone who's not a Space Marine revere Space Marines and indeed the Emperor in an evangelical godly kind of manner, but as a Space Marine, it's perspective, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So
As
I say, almost all of them view him simply as the founder and greatest leader of humans, and thus should be, if not worshipped, then respected. And that leads...
The Emperor is L. Ron Hubbard. Got it. Okay.
Effectively, yeah. And
metaphorically speaking, I'm not getting jib. I'm not getting involved in that.
Yeah.
Well said, Carl.
Just analogies. That's all it was. Yeah.
Words.
The opposite to that then is are chapters like the Black Templars, who do view the Emperor as a god, as a living deity, and worship him with as much zeal as kind of the most pious member of the ecclesiarchy.
And thus see themselves as angels?
And thus see themselves as God's chosen warriors.
Close enough.
Sure.
This division of view of the Emperor causes a lot of friction between the Astartes and the ecclesiarchy, because the ecclesiarchy do hold up the Space Marines as the angels of the Emperor.
Right.
They have their own sets of saints, and certainly the Celestines. No, what's it called? The name's gone. The living saints that manifest in the Sisters of Battle, as well, are worshipped as the angels of the Emperor. But the ecclesiarchy can use the Black Templars, or in fact any other Space Marine chapter, as the kind of vengeance of the Emperor himself. And so there are planets where Space Marines are worshipped as saints, if you get that kind of notion. And as any contact with a Space Marine is kind of becomes part of that family lore, or that regimental lore, in terms of, it's very rare to actually see a Space Marine. There's only 1 million of them in a galaxy that has at least 1 million planets inhabited. So yeah, 1
Marine per planet. It's not particularly effective, is it?
I mean, it's not nothing, but yeah, it's yeah.
So you're saying that, like, if a Space Marine made planetfall and a particular family on that planet, had contact with them, that would get written into their history. Sir, John Doe bumped into a Space Marine in this year, that sort of thing. They'd have it. They'd have a plaque. There'd be a plaque on a wall somewhere.
Oh yeah, and that John Doe would be lauded for, in a way that he wouldn't deserve.
Because he's actually a bit of a cunt.
They'd imply that he was chosen to meet this emperor's angel, and da-da-da. So he would capitalize on that. In the novel The Brotherhood of the Snake, there is a single Space Marine on a planet, on a kind of patrol, and I really like the idea of a single Space Marine with a land speeder, as a caravan, just kind of decked out with all his kind of minivan life as he's patrolling the
on the road again.
Yeah.
Mate, your awning's still out. Your awning's still out. Still out.
I know you're the angel of the Emperor, but mate, I can see your Tamagotchi. Put it away.
I wonder if he's got like I was just in Canada, and it's what they have is really common there. They have like big trucks with a kind of caravan sort of stuck on the back of it, and then the caravan has like 4, I don't know what they're called, like supports, and they just drive somewhere, drop the supports, and then they drive the car out, and then you've just got this thing
bore into the ground.
Into some that on a land speeder would be fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but how fortified are those units, Ben? Because you're going to need to fend off bears and off tits on maple syrup. Yeah,
and Americans.
And Americans. Yeah. In terms of how a chapter looks, each chapter is made up of 10 companies of 100 battle brothers. Now, that's a distinction which justifies them actually being around about 1,200 Space Marines per chapter, because they have command and control personnel as well. So you've got the chaplaincy, the apothecaron, the librarius, and then you've got the fleet that each Space Marine chapter has, the space fleet. Mr. Chris.
So they've got just a shy over, 20% over their 1,000.
Yeah.
It's not insignificant. Are those also Space Marine level humanoids, or are they just regular humans with special titles?
No, they would be actual Space Marines, and it varies chapter to chapter. But I suspect that maybe
Space
1200's the high
Space Marine level librarians, Space Marine
exactly
level
right.
cooks. Yeah, got it.
Now that wasn't always the case, as we'll discuss later on. Mr. Ben.
Does the Codex Astartes only specify that it's 1,000 ranked Marines in the company?
1,000 members of squads.
1,000 squad members.
So in kind of military doctrine, I believe the rule of thumb is if you've got, in this case, 10 squads of 10 Marines, you would have an additional squad which should serve as the command, an additional number of Marines that would make up a squad. So an additional 10 to 15%. And that's the kind of rule of thumb all the way up for the various commanders and lieutenants.
You couldn't attempt the kind of, when people are looking for a good school for their kids, they always look for the teacher to pupil ratio. In an ideal world, what you want is a 1-to-1 ratio because, you get lots of attention then for the child. So, is it possible that a chapter could bend the rules and be like, yeah, we have, one commander, one librarian, and one apothecary for every squad member, and thus our chapter is 4,000 members.
We dealt with a Space Marine chapter expanding their numbers quite drastically with the Astro Clause, but another example here would be the Black Templars, who get around all kinds of rules simply by saying that they have 1,000.
Like being dumb at math.
Yeah, they have just over 1,000 Space Marines in their crusade. Right. But they have 4 or 5 crusades going at any given time. So Excellent. They've actually, 3 or 4 times the size of what they are technically supposed to adhere to.
That's using the old noodle, isn't it?
Is that seen as a legitimate thing, or do people think it's a bit cheeky? They're taking the piss.
Well, it's one of these kind of, much like the Badab War, we know it. Not everyone in the Imperium knows it.
Yeah, the Black Templars are just counting on the intern in the administratum just doing the expenses forms, and it's just like, okay, and it's that for the Black Templars, and then another one for the Black Templars. Hold on a minute, and then they start to cross-reference them, and they're like, hold on, these are 2 separate groups, man. You cannot.
What are you trying to pull here?
You cannot spend £10 at Screwfix in the Maelstrom and at the same time be spending £10 over in Terra. What the fuck is going on here? Right, let's have another Dar freestyle Jackson. We are going to give Dar 3 prompts, or Kral is going to give Dar 3 prompts. I'm going to give a negative keyword, and Dar has 2 minutes. Dar has 2 minutes to tell a story, including the 3 prompts, avoiding using the negative keyword. If he fails, we will call him a melon.
We will castrate him.
Kral, will you please provide us with a vehicle, an administratum department of your choosing, could be made up or real in as much as they can be described as real.
Okay. Blimey.
Okay. And a bodily function.
Okay, and a bodily function. Okay, I might need a bit of help here. So a vehicle first. Let's go for a Mars-class cruiser. Let's go for a big old ship. What was the other one? An administratum department. So we're talking Adeptus Terra. Give us a few real ones. Sorry, prompt me. Darren, give me a few administratum departments.
Oh, you've the Astropaths, the Munitorum, the Adeptus Terra, the Inquisition, the Imperial Navy, so those kinds of guys. And the Arbites, the Space Police.
Or the Administratum of whatever you want.
Yeah, okay. The Administratum of Tamagotchis, Darren. The Administratum of Tamagotchis and a bodily function.
Yep.
Okay. That sometimes very annoying, like nervous twitch you get in your eyelid. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it just kind of twitches now and then.
Yeah. Okay. Nervous twitch.
Yeah. That.
Okay, Dar. So you got to tell us a story that includes a Mars class cruiser, the Administratum of Tamagotchis, and a nervous twitch. And your negative keyword is space.
Negative keyword is space. Jesus Christ.
Right. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
We made mention in this episode of Inquisitor Obi-Wan Sherlock Clouseau, and one of his most famous cases led to the purging of the Adeptus Tamagotchius, which was a department in charge of keeping people busy. So they really were kind of busy work, micromanaging or micromagent, as Crow would pronounce it.
Yep.
And they were in charge of the... Oh God, I can't come up with a name for a battle cruiser. They
HMS
oversaw the Mars battle cruiser Mr. Kipling, and that was a training ground really for their operations in orbit around planets, making sure that they were able to, from a very high altitude, monitor their emplacements on planets. Obi-Wan got involved because of an outbreak of really nervous twitchiness that a lot of these operators suffered from, and through his investigation he discovered that the Administratum Tamagotchius was in fact a front for a heretical cult worshipping the chaos form Tzeentch, and he, from his own battle platform, nuked them from orbit.
Excellent. On the nose. Yes.
Well done. And proper application of those words and terms as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how you do it, mate. Those synapses must be...
Pow, pow.
I find that a Bailey's coffee at 6 o'clock in the morning really helps.
Yeah.
So within these chapters, as I say, 10 companies. The first company in general is the veteran company. So that's where the best warriors of the chapter can be found. And that's where you have the Terminators, the Terminator armored Space Marines made famous by the game Space Hulk initially. The second to fifth companies are referred to as battle companies. And they're meant to be discrete elements that can handle really any kind of planetary invasion or planetary campaign. They have their command staff, so they have a command squad of company veterans, plus the captain, the lieutenants, and the chaplain, the kind of fire and brimstone space marine preacher. They'll have attached medics and tech marines, who are the engineers of each chapter as well. And that company then will comprise of 6 tactical squads, who are meant to be the kind of battle-tested brothers of the chapter. Then they'll be kind of supported by 2 assault squads, who are the newest members of the chapter who have graduated from scouts.
Right.
Because fresh. So the idea is they're still out to prove themselves, so they make good assault marines. To kind of get in there. They won't show, they'll have no hesitation. And then you'll have 2 Devastator squads, and these are kind of fire support elements. So these will be Space Marines armed with
Fire
heavy
support
weapons.
elephants.
Fire support elephants, yeah. I am, of course, referring to Firstborn Space Marines. These are the kind of battle brothers who were created in exactly the same way as they were during the Horus Heresy. So it's taking an adolescent...
The old way, the best way.
Yeah, best way. The best way, Chris, is taking an adolescent boy, jamming a load of organs and implants into his body, and then training him for a decade. So it's
that's why I always say.
That's the slow way of making a Space Marine.
But
there are now Primaris chapters whose companies follow a similar structure, although the designations of Tactical Assault and Devastator are replaced with Battle Line, which are the kind of intercessor Space Marines. You then have Close Support, which are Assault, kind of up close and personal troops. And then you have Fire Support, which are the Devastators.
Right.
So the structure is roughly still there. It's just called something else. And we'll deal with that when we dive into Primaris chapters as well. Mr. Ben.
Is the in terms of like armored support, so land raiders, bikes, any sort of like artillery, would that be included in a Devastator squad, or is that a separate thing?
Vehicles tend to be under the auspices of the Master of the Forge. They will have, like, say for instance, a battle company will in general have access to 10 rhinos. It may be the same 10 rhino transports all the time, not rhino beasts. I needed to make that distinction. That'd be weird.
Whee! Yeah.
So rhinos are an armored personnel carrier. Yeah. Right. And indeed, like, the first company will have access to 10 land raiders or 10 or more land raiders. Vehicles like bikes and land speeders tend to be assigned to companies and then stay there. So some of the battle companies, the assault squads, can use the big bikes or the land speeder variants. Again, similar between Firstborn and Primaris, but we're going to deal with Firstborn for the immediate future.
Cool.
As we've touched on there are a lot of vehicles associated with Space Marines, and as I say, we'll stick with Firstborn for the moment. For transports, you've got the Rhino armored personnel carrier, which just looks like what you think an armored personnel carrier looks like in your own imagination, but there's also models of it because it's a game. You then have a thing called a Razorback, which is a Rhino that has a turret on top, usually manned, and lays down kind of support fire for a smaller squad of 6 Marines who are transported in there. So that's used for rapid assault to get up close and personal with heavier weapons than the squad would normally have. Bikes, again, they're Space Marines on a bike. Now, I mean a motorbike, not a bicycle. That's an amusing image that's made me smile.
Bike.
Push bike. Yeah, all the first founding ones are on penny farthings. You know, the big ones, the big wheel.
The really cool ones have the clackers in the little plastic blade.
That they got out of cereal. Like, you used to get them in free gifts and.
But that's a White Scar. That's a White Scars move, I think, for Ben.
And then they just like intimidatingly like circle their enemy on their bikes.
Yeah.
While singing nursery rhymes. Kind of weird horror film sort of, yeah.
What a Dickensian lifestyle you've had, Ben. There is a bike and sidecar combination that the Space Marines had called an attack bike, which is effectively just a bike with a little sidecar that a Space Marine has holding either a heavy bolter, like a heavy machine gun, a multi-melta, and that's used to add extra punch to a bike squad that are, traveling over the battlefield or through cities or what have you. Over the next few episodes, we're going to deal with each aspect of this in quite monotonous, eye-watering detail. So this really is the intro to this section. In terms of personal armaments, Space Marines wear powered armor. think of, if you're a fan of the Halo games, it's Master Chief. So it's the power armor,
Nice.
augments their strength and toughness, gives them various ways of analyzing the battlefield, and is able to diagnose any injuries, and to some extent...
Warning, arm is broken. Thanks.
Yeah.
Computer.
Thanks. If they're shooting at me, you'll be sure to point it out, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. The ubiquitous weapon for a Space Marine is a bolt gun, or a bolter, or a bolt rifle, as it is now for the Primaris. And that is a portable grenade launcher machine gun with an amusingly scaled magazine, in terms of size for Ben.
Yay.
In terms of the recruitment of Space Marines, the chapters have the right, depending on what type of chapter they are, they can either recruit from one of the worlds under their care, or they can recruit from worlds that they pass by as their fleets move, given that some Space Marines are bound to a system and sector. Other Space Marines are fleet-based and can move through the galaxy, as their whims take them, I suppose. Almost all chapters are bound by something called the Codex Astartes, which was written by one of the Primarchs, one of the great generals and genetic parents of one of the Space Marine legions, goes by the name of Robert Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarine chapter. And after the Horus Heresy, he published, he had been writing already the Codex, but he published it and bound all Space Marines and Space Marines chapters to obey its kind of diktats. And that's where we see the transition from the Space Marine legions, which numbered in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Space Marines, down into discrete units of 1,000 that could operate within the Imperium without being a threat to the Imperium. Space Marines, that's really the summation of episodes 13 and 14. What I'd like to do now is just quickly have a look at where that's what Space Marines have become. It's not what they were like when they started.
They've evolved.
So we're going to dial the clock way back to September-ish 1987, where really this is the launch of the 40K game, the Rogue Trader, as it was called, the book. The original concept for the setting was it was to be medieval sci-fi. That's really the kind of core of it. And that's what grew to become this concept of grim dark, where everything was doom-laden and hideous. So the Imperium, and thus the Space Marines, were viewed with medieval attitudes. So it's very much technology is magic. No one really understands how the technology works, but they have traditions that have evolved over generations to maintain the pieces of machinery, and now they just follow that maintenance process rather than being able to actually repair things properly. So stuff is constantly breaking down. Mr. Chris?
Is it a lot of like quackery? Like, I don't know why we have to knock on it 3 times before we twist this wing nut, but we just do.
Yeah.
It's in the book.
But we've always done it,
right.
and it's always worked, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's hilarious because there is literally a little bit of color text in one of the, I think it's in the first Space Marine Army list, that was, wave the smoke over the control panel, recite the litany of initiation 3 times, strike the green button, and then if the machine spirit does not come to life, use the righteous wrench to the side of the control panel.
Scream profanity to the Emperor, for fuck's sake!
But it's this kind of thing where it has taken over a kind of religious, quasi-religious rituals for at all levels of the Imperium. This was at the very dawn of the 40K game. the Imperium was not as enlightened as it is now, and I understand what I'm saying in terms of what the Imperium is now. So Chris is just
we don't
scrunched
bother
his
with
face up.
with the smoke over the thing now. We just have to piss in each other's faces. We're not we're not animals.
Well, that went sideways real fast.
Yeah, it breaks down on the battlefield, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't piss in his face enough. Damn it!"
So yes, Space Marines were very much viewed like the kind of militant orders of I believe it's the Middle Ages, like the Knights Templar, the Teutonic Knights, the Knights of the Maltese Cross. So these were holy warriors, but it was still viewed as an elite version of the regular army. They were not these kind of enormous transhuman warriors that they became. In terms of the game stats, they were stronger than a baseline human soldier, but they were exactly as hardy as a regular human soldier. They had no kind of additional fortitude or toughness in this instance.
There's a bit more gumption. A bit more spirit,
a bit more gumption,
spunk.
A bit more spunk, yeah.
But they did have but they did have access to technology that bordered on magic as far as the rest of the Imperium was concerned. And this is the power armour that they wore, which, as I say, gave them kind of Master Chief level strength and endurance. They had these terrifying weapons of war, and they were able to travel the galaxy and fight as needed. There were very few chapters that had home worlds. Most of them from the lore, if I'm taking this from the lore, most of them appear to have been these fleet-based chapters, which could be summoned at a moment's notice to a conflict somewhere else in the galaxy. At the time of launch, there was only 12 named chapters. And this is where I'm going to start throwing up images.
Yes.
So you can see 12 Space Marines, one of each different chapter that was named at time of launch of 40K in November, December 87. Of the 12, only 6 are there as first founding Space Marines. You've got the Dark Angels, the Space Wolves, the Ultramarines, the White Scars, the Iron Hands, and the Blood Angels. All the rest are successor chapters, and indeed 3 of them are successor chapters of the Blood Angels. So across the top there, you've got the Flesh Eaters, the Flesh Tearers, and the Blood Drinkers. They're all associated with the Blood Angels and therefore the Primarch Sanguinius.
Clues and then word. Blood.
Yeah.
Oh, and flesh.
Something blood something, yes.
What was the successor, what was the origin legion for the Crimson Fists?
They're an Imperial Fist successor chapter.
Okay.
But not at time at launch.
Okay.
Not at time at launch.
It's a bit of a misleading name, isn't it? Crimson Fists, but they've only got one red hand.
Well, it's a Crimson Fist, Ben. I mean, what more do you want?
just singular. Don't lie to me.
It exemplifies the fact that they're blue with one red fist exemplifies the fist that is crimson. I think that's the point. Yeah.
Although they do have one on their pauldron as well. So
also, it's more scarlet than crimson. So it's the Scarlet Fist.
Mauve.
It's the Scarlet Pimpernel.
Crimson Fist, are these the guys that foobarred themselves with a torpedo?
Exactly right, yes.
Yes, Chris. Well
You're a knob.
That was the first scenario. That scenario was in the Battle at the Farm, as it's called. It's in the Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader rulebook as the first kind of mission. And so it's the first kind of detail of the hilarious consequences of not maintaining your weaponry.
Did it become like an infomercial to the rest of like the chapters? Like, make sure you lube up your machinery and check your armament.
Yeah. And use the smoke
You got a
thing.
crimson-
And...
To crimson fist yourself was a term. He's
Go
fisted
crimson
himself.
fist yourself. It's quite a ridiculous situation to have, described at the outset of their, during their introduction. Were they a little
What an
bit more
entrance.
tongue in cheek? Yeah, exactly. Were the Space Marines a bit more tongue in cheek back then, like less serious than they are now?
Absolutely are. And certainly they were not the angels of death that we've come to know and love. There's a wry sense of humor that goes through all of kind of Rogue Trader and early second edition 40K,
Gotcha.
where like one of the Inquisitors is called Obi-Wan Sherlock Clouseau. That's his name. That gives you an
So much
idea
going on.
of the
That's rich coming from a company that take their IP protectiveness so seriously. They're really pushing the
Yeah.
boundaries.
Yes,
there.
now.
Like, we're going to call them Obi-Wan, Sherlock, Disney, Mickey Mouse, Homer Simpson.
Yeah. I mean, we are talking about almost 40 years ago, so,
Sure.
it's,
Times were different. Space Marines were hilarious.
just
Copyright wasn't taken seriously.
by the time that the 40K Rogue Trader rulebook was released, there was a slew of minis, but that really we see the advent of one of their major plastic kits, which was the Plastic Space Marine kit called RTB01. That's the SKU for that kit, which was a box that allowed you to make 3 full squads of Space Marines, including missile launchers, flamers, and you had equipment to create sergeants and stuff. And it's from that kit and another kit, which is the Space Orc Raiders, that's the actual name of the box, that you had everything you needed to fight that battle.
Cool.
It was an early attempt at having a discrete boxed game, if you see what I mean.
Right.
Because
Okay.
moving on from second edition, you had 2
Boxed
opposing
games.
forces in the boxes. Yeah. So at this stage, it was just the
Until you
books.
got them out of the box, they were just constantly fighting in there. Just like on the shelves.
Yeah.
Or weren't Crown. It was like Schrodinger's Warhammer,
Schrodinger's.
They were both fighting and in sprues.
So almost
Sprues.
immediately upon the release of the rule book, we started to see active rules development and additional content being brought in through White Dwarf, through the magazine. And one of the first major kind of expansions was a complete breakdown of the the kind of jet bike riding company of the Dark Angels.
Cool.
We know them now as the Raven Wing, which are the second company of the Dark Angel Space Marine chapter. But right back at the dawn of time, they were the 7th company. Every single one of them was riding a jet bike, armed with either 2 bolt guns or a plasma gun or a heavy bolter. So you had these power armored Egypt zipping around the place, blasting people from left, right, and center.
Tearing up
But it was
Amazing.
turf and lawns and
yeah. But it was the first time we saw an organizational breakdown of a Space Marine company. As specialized as it was, we got to see the kind of initial footsteps into what would become the Dark Angels' second company. And the jet bike model is, look, compared to the kits now, it's horseshit, but it's absolutely adorable. And I really like it. The jet bike is only slightly bigger than the Space Marine that's riding it.
That's so funny. It looks like Mario Kart.
Yeah. This also reminds me that you could have Space Marines riding hover surfboards.
Oh, cool.
So
All right.
so you could hoverboard into battle with some sort of cry.
With some sort of dope sneakers as well.
whilst playing electric guitar.
The following issue of White Dwarf, which was White Dwarf 97, that's when we see the Ultramarines explode onto the scene with a great deal of detail and structure. They jazz hands.
Yeah.
We're back, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, no Crimson Fist.
Yeah. This breakdown shows that the Space Marine chapters were perhaps not as a discrete element, a self-contained element, as they have become. They did not start that way. And I can illustrate that with the chief librarian of the Ultramarines at the time, a half Eldar called Ilian Nastes, who became the chief librarian of the Ultramarines. So let's just sink in. A half Eldar, born on the planet Badab, on Badab Primaris. This issue was 4 months before the initial Badab article came out. So this is the very first mention of Badab. Born to a human mother and a Eldar Corsair pirate, he started out training as an astropath. So he was soul bonded and was a member of the astropathic choir on Badab Primaris, then became the kind of second in command, then became the prefect of that astropathic choir, and then was recruited as a consul to be the Senate advisor to the Senate Imperialis for the master of the Astra Telepathica. So he went from being a kind of half-elf, half-human psychic child on a planet to being an adult then who was now advising the Astra Telepathica master when they were in the Senate, the Imperial Senate on Terra.
What have you done with your lives, guys? Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
He then spent, after that, he spent 4 years in the Imperial Fleet. That's simply what they called the Imperial Navy at the time. And then joined the Dark Angels for 2 years. And after that, joined the Ultramarines as their chief librarian. Mr. Chris.
I thought the Eldars were like almost mortal enemies of the Imperium. So how did he get away with that if he's half Eldar?
Yeah, good question. He seemed to be a stable psyker. It also kind of hints at the fact that the Imperium wasn't as xenophobic at its outset in the game as it then became.
Oh, my best mate's an Eldar, you know?
Yeah. My best mate's half Eldar. I can't be xenophobic. But what his career path highlights is you didn't need to be a kid to become a Space Marine. Because at no stage in his thing did it say he went through the implantations, although he must have done at some point. So perhaps he had to go through them when he joined the Dark Angels. But it wasn't until the next issue of White Dwarf that they actually broke down the implantations and the ages that those happen in. So already you're getting kind of continuity errors as the kind of lore is being written in front of you, which I miss. I really like that because there was not only was there something new every issue, but it wasn't a variation on a theme. It wasn't like, oh, you've got these space wolves, now we've changed their iconography, they're now blood angels. And, you know, it's this kind of thing.
It was treading new ground every time.
Yeah, every time.
That's cool.
In terms of the structure of the chapter, 10 companies, as we would see. Companies 1 through 9 were battle companies. There was no dedicated veteran company.
Right.
Although the first company was seen as veteran, in quotes. Terminator armor didn't exist at this time. And Dreadnought armor was only supplied to companies 1 and 2. So the Ultramarines chapter as a whole only had 4 Dreadnoughts.
Right.
Not the 2 to 3 per company that they would come to have, that all Space Marine chapters would come to have. In terms of squad structure, the companies 1 to 9, the first 9 companies, had the 6 tactical squads. They were there from the outset. They had 2 assault squads, again, they were from the outset. The remaining 2 squads were a heavy weapon squad, so a Devastator, although it took 1 additional army list for them to be called Devastators. They were just heavy weapon squads. And then you had a special assault squad, which were the company veterans. And the only difference between the special assault squads and the regular assault squads is their power armor was coated in a thing called camoline, which is chameleon skin, effectively. They could blend into the backgrounds like the Predators.
Sounds like a cleaning product made from camels, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Cameline.
Now featuring real camels.
Clean, you're a Space Marine. Yeah.
You saw, in terms of vehicles, Rhinos and Land Raiders were available, but only Land Raiders were mentioned in the chapter breakdown. As well were kind of heavy hover transports, which we don't see until we get to the kind of Primaris era of Space Marines. Really then, at that early stage, they were simply viewed as an army, like an army regiment or an expanded brigade. I don't know what the correct scale is. But they weren't, these self-contained religious kind of nutjob warriors that they have become.
Is that how they were described by their peers?
Yeah.
Fucking nutjob warriors.
But it appears that Space Marines could transfer, or at least command level Space Marines could transfer between chapters, bringing expertise and what have you with you. So they weren't recruited at 12, you're a Dark Angel for the rest of your life. Oh no, it turns out this guy could join as an adult, become a Dark Angel Space Marine, and then move on to the Ultramarines. Yeah. Baffling.
It's great that there are career opportunities for them in that respect. It's like Dark Angel's not quite working for me, man. I feel like I could be more. There's all the higher rank
chapter.
Yeah, they sound wicked. They sound fucking wicked. I want to rise up the ranks, but it's too full at the top of this one. So maybe I'll try a different chapter, and even if it's just a sidestep.
It does sound like there were like specialist recruitment agencies for the Astartes chapters. Bring them in. Even though I'm saying they weren't the kind of discrete religious nutjobs that they became, as in the self-contained, they did in the article, in the Ultramarines article, it does sort of lay out what a kind of day in the life of a Space Marine is like. And a full third of that is spent in prayer or meditation. So the religious elements were there. Wow. A lot of the meditation is done while cleaning equipment and weapons. And there is, you'll be delighted to hear, personal time was allotted to Space Marines to do whatever they wanted. And that ran from 10 o'clock at night to 10 past 10 at night. So they had a full 10 minutes to do whatever they wanted.
Amazing. That pottery class is going to take them fucking ages, isn't it? Just knitting a sweater for you. It's going to be 10 years from now before I get back to you.
But I've got my new power knitting.
So I can actually do an hour's worth of knitting in 10 minutes.
And they introduced the 15-minute break. Productivity didn't drop. In fact, it increased. The extra 5 minutes that they got actually incentivized people to do more in the allotted time. So it was all good. Everyone won.
It was a highly efficient use of personal time.
And 1/3 of the force decided with that extra 5 minutes, they were inspired so much by the generosity of their bosses that they gave 7.5 minutes back. They took 7.5 minutes and then they were ready to crack on again.
I'm here voluntarily.
So, as I say, in White Dwarf 98, that's where we get the kind of breakdown of the organs and zygotes and progenoids that are implanted and or harvested from Space Marines, and the biological process that it takes for a young adolescent boy to become a Space Marine at the time. I should also note, in the Ultramarines articles, there are no scouts. And indeed, Space Marine Scouts wouldn't exist for a number of issues of White Dwarf. They had reconnaissance Marines, which were effectively either tactical or assault Marines. I can't remember which at the time. But they had, again, this chameleon-style coating on their armour and would just sneak forward. And that was the 10th Company.
Cool.
Of note, in the origins of the Space Marines, they do mention that there were 20 first founding chapters, but they use the word chapters. And they state quite clearly only 7 of these exist in the 41st millennium. So pick any 2 of your first founding chapters and just get rid of them, according to the dawn of 40K. The last article I really want to talk about is the Codex Imperialis Space Marine list, which appeared in White Dwarf 105. And that's there when we start seeing the lieutenant commanders, captains, lieutenants, chaplains, medics, tech marines, librarians, and the squads then are designated tactical, assault, devastator, and you have access to dreadnoughts and types of vehicles there. And so it's taken the bones of a year for the structure of a Space Marine chapter to come to that kind of initial recognizable block that has some parity with how the chapters are viewed now.
And what issue of White Dwarf was this in?
105.
And how were they monthly releases or?
Yes, they were. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So that's September 88. So almost a year after the launch of the 40K game. But the way that the White Dwarf magazines would have been done is that they would have been ready to be printed 6 months before, the release, the actual physical release. So the lore would have been developed with a 6 months lead time.
So if that was a year after the release of the 40K game, but it's 100 and something and they're released monthly, that would have meant that White Dwarf was running for long before the 40K game was released.
Oh,
is
yeah,
that right?
yeah. I mean, 40K wasn't mentioned at all until I think it's August 1987. So there's a good 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's back to 83, I think, is the first issue of White Dwarf. Although I'll check.
Wow.
So that's their kind of structure and history within the game development. From next episode, we'll start with the lore itself about the Space Marines. And I think that the best place to start is the reason for the Space Marines to exist. So we're going to look at why the Space Marines were produced, what the Space Marines replaced, and indeed how the Emperor got his groove back. No, how the Emperor came to prominence. So our next episode will deal with the reunification war on Terra, which is the rise of the Emperor. We're talking, a few hundred years before the Great Crusade. So not even, this is pre-Horus Heresy. We'll start because the seeds of the Space Marines are in that war.
Right.
And we'll start from there. We'll then talk about the Thunder Warriors, who were the kind of genetic soldiers that the Emperor produced.
I had a unfortunate demise.
An unfortunate demise. We'll look at the
on Mount Ararat.
The Astartes lead. Look at him flexing his knowledge.
Chris.
By the Custodes.
And then we'll have a look at some history of the broad history of the Space Marines, and then we'll dive into each company in a chapter and then have a look at spend a fair few episodes actually looking at individual chapters.
Can we shoehorn a coffee break in between some of that
it.
as well? Is that
No, we're going to start right now. Right now.
Yeah,
This is an
we are
all-day
raw dogging
record.
this. Let's go.
We will
Right.
not stop until it's done, Kral.
That's my lot for today.
I don't have any more blood to bleed out of my nose.
Well, I that had my attention fully. The whole
Apart from that moment that it didn't.
apart from that moment that it didn't, which the
Apart from
listeners
that
will not know
25
about.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is kind of. God, I hate to say it, but it is the essence of this is what Kral said right at the start of this. It's like if you said Warhammer 40K to Kral right at the start, the first thing that comes to mind is Space Marines, isn't it? They're the poster boys.
Yeah.
So it's good to be, for want of a better phrase, getting into them.
Yes.
Ugh.
I can't think of a better phrase. We're getting balls deep in the Space Marines. Yeah, it's going to be.
All right, Ben.
It's going to be painful.
And we're starting with the Emperor's Children, it seems. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, no, amazing. All right, well, looks like we got to wrap up then. Anything else?
That's a wrap up.
Wrap up. All right, that's all from us. Thank you so much for listening. Details and imagery for the topics we've discussed in this podcast can be found on our website at layingdownthelaw.com. We also have all our previous episodes on there, release schedules and merchandise, including the aforementioned Kral rings. Again, if you are keen to support the podcast, just click on the Quartermaster link in the description and give us all of your Space Marine credits. We'll be back again soon displaying just how little Chris and I know. And until then, a goodbye.
Oh, goodbye.
Toodaloo.